Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Daily Betslip. Special episode today because the NBA season starts tonight. With all the sports going on, it might have slipped your memory, but yeah, NBA opening night tonight. So, what better person to join me to talk about the NBA season than Jonathan Von Tobel? You can follow him on Twitter at MeJVT. He is a host and senior NBA analyst with VSiN. Hello, JVT. Thank you for joining me. I want to start you off with a question about a team that has been in the headlines a lot lately. I've said this before on the show. I'm not the biggest NBA guy in the world, but I did move to Brooklyn last year, lived there for a year. So I went to a handful of Nets games. I kind of adopted them as one of my teams. A lot of drama surrounding this Brooklyn Nets team. Can they put it together this year? Because they have the star power to do it.
Yeah, look, I will say that I'm going to err on the side of yes. Like, I think it's going to be the weird thing about Brooklyn, as you kind of alluded to, is I can give you a lot of numbers that will tell you this team is going to be really good. And a lot of analysis of this team is going to be really good. I think we all know that, though. The hard thing to predict is the personalities that are surrounding this team.
Right.
And that's where I think if you're going to tell me that they're all going to stay together and nothing's going to fall apart by the time December comes around and everybody's going to be demanding for trades and everything, then I think this is a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. The addition of Royce O'Neal to this lineup, and he's probably going to be part of their starting lineup, very much going to be part of their closing lineup, playing Ben Simmons at center with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and Seth Curry. Like, this is a team that is loaded with talent, and their depth is pretty solid too. Little thin at like true point guard. I think you probably want to add another guy before the trade deadline, or see if you can find somebody when they get released. But I think at the end of the day, the star power is there enough to that they're going to be a high-end offensive team. It's just whether or not the personalities are going to coexist. Because the other part about this is Eastern Conference got a lot tougher. You know, Philadelphia 76ers, I think, are arguably the best team in the Eastern Conference. We know how good the Celtics are. The Milwaukee Bucks still have Giannis, but they're injured to start the year. Atlanta, Cleveland, Toronto, Miami, we can go down the list. So I think if this team stays together, they have the potential to be one of the better offenses in the NBA and to be a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. The problem just is, are we going to have this happen? Because the guy they wanted on the sidelines, and Steve Nash, they also wanted fired this last offseason.
Yeah, which I think the Brooklyn Nets are kind of the perfect example of. You can look at all the stats that you can find, and I'm primarily a stats-based handicapper, but at the end of the day, there are teams that have that X factor that you can't necessarily measure. How should people handle betting on the Nets early in the season? Should we just wait it out and kind of see how their chemistry is and then maybe find a betting angle? Or what's your take on betting on them early in the year?
Yeah, I think if we're talking about like preseason futures, I'm going to sit back and wait. And you're going to read headlines. You're going to watch press conferences. You're just going to see how this team is gelling from that standpoint, right? Like, I don't want to realistically invest in an over on a win total, or for them to win the Atlantic, or for them to win the NBA Finals at this point of the season, because there's a lot of volatility there that's not basketball related, that there's no data points on that would give you an idea of what's going to happen. I will say, as the season starts, they do project to be a pretty solid over team, right? Those totals are going to start to move to the over. We saw it already for their first game coming up. This is because they have a really high ceiling on offense, but defensively there are some struggles there. Like, Royce O'Neal's a fine defender. Ben Simmons, we know, can be a defensive player of the year type candidate. But outside of that, this team really lacks for dynamic on-ball defenders, and so that's going to be a problem for them as they go forward. But the offense won't. So these are going to be some high-scoring affairs that this team is going to be involved in. I think something like that, where we're looking at them as an over team, you can rely on that and consistently play that as you move forward, because the off-court stuff doesn't really have a lot to do with that. As long as that team's going to play, then you know that they're going to go in that direction. But from a future standpoint, yeah, I don't think you want to invest right now, and let's just see what happens. Because here's the other thing about the futures market in the NBA. It gets really volatile throughout the entire season. Look at the last 3 years. Last year, Boston was as low as 66-1 to win the NBA Finals. The Heat, in the year that in the bubble, they were as high as 80-1, or as low as 80-1 to win the NBA Finals. The year that the Hawks made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, they bottomed out at 65-1. Not that the Nets are going to get that far, but there's a lot of volatility and movement in the futures market. You're going to find an opportunity to bet them in the big picture if they're going to stay together.
Now, something you mentioned earlier, the Eastern Conference is a lot tougher. And this is something that I love about the NBA kind of last year and this year as well. Is I think we're seeing a little bit more parity in the NBA than I'm used to seeing, at least over the past 10 years. It felt like it was always the same teams were playing in the finals, like when the Cavs and Warriors kept meeting each other. But speaking of the Warriors, with the amount of parity across the NBA, are the Warriors a good bet to repeat? Do they have a chance to repeat as champions?
Oh, they definitely have a chance. I would say that from a odds perspective, though, I do think they come in a little overvalued. Now, this comes from somebody who rates the Clippers as the best team in the NBA.
Interesting.
So a price that right there is for the Golden State. Like we're talking about like 5-1, depending on where you shop. To me, that's not a price that it's worth investing in at this point right now. But they are very good, and for me, they're the second best team in the Western Conference. When you look at what they have, think about this. So their primary starting lineup in the postseason, now with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney, they had a net rating of plus 17.9 in the postseason. They didn't play a single possession together in the regular season last year because everybody was injured at one point or another. Klay Thompson was coming back from injury, Draymond this time, Steph this time. So now their best starting lineup in the postseason gets to start with them in the regular season. They do get a little bit worse in terms of their depth. You can make the argument. Gary Payton II, is gone. The rest of their guys are gone as well. Nemanja Bjelica, but they had Dante DiVincenzo, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, and James Wiseman all expect to grow as young players. I think there's an argument to be made they might be a little bit better than they were last year, given the pieces they now have available to them. But I still put them just behind the Los Angeles Clippers. So I would sit back and wait. And Steve Kerr has also made it known he's going to watch the minutes with these guys. And the Golden State's regular season might not be as important for them this time around, which means, again, as we're talking about this like volatility in the futures market, that price could creep up to like 6-7-1. You might get something better if they're kind of ho-humming it through the regular season, you know?
Now, give me a dark horse team, because I was just talking about parity. At least to me, it seems like there's a lot of parity. Is there a team a little bit further down the odds list that has a realistic chance of going on a run this year?
Yeah, I would say so. The best price that I could find for the Denver Nuggets was about 20-1 out there. And I think that is something, if you can get that price, that's worth investing in, because yes, the headline is Michael Porter Jr. comes back, Jamal Murray comes back. When Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic were on the floor together last, that was 2 seasons ago, net rating plus 11.8 per 100 possessions, an offensive rating of 124.9. They were an elite offensive team. You throw in a guy like Aaron Gordon in that mix, it gets even better. And their primary starting lineup of Porter, Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, plus 17 net rating. They were awesome. That was about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. But it's not just about those two. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is now part of this team. He's an awesome fit. Really good catch and shoot three-point shooter, really solid perimeter defender. Their bench gets a little bit better too when you look at some of the additions that come over. I think that this is a team that has the potential to win like 50, 54 plus games, win the first seed in the Western Conference, be like a really good regular season team, but also make a run, because I think we forget this is a team that made it to the Western Conference Finals back in that 2020 season. So I would say out of all like the dark horses, if you're going kind of deepish, 20-1 on Denver would be like the darkest horse I would look for with a realistic chance to win the NBA Finals.
I love it. Now, 2 games to get us started off tonight. 76ers against the Celtics. The Lakers against the defending champion Warriors. Do you have any picks for tonight's games?
Yeah, well, I bet the 76ers here in the spot, but that was over the summer when they opened up +6 against the Boston Celtics. So that's far gone. But I'll say this about that game. When you're talking about 2.5, you could still very much make the argument that there's still a little bit of value on Philly if you have not gotten in yet. Remember, Robert Williams is not going to be available to start the year for the Boston Celtics, so that's a little bit of a problem. Obviously, he's not playing here tonight. And this number at 2.5 last year, home court equated to about 1.5 points. So this is still kind of telling you that Boston maybe rates out as a better team than Philly. I don't really think that's the case, and I really don't think that's the case if Robert Williams is not going to be out there, especially when you're talking about your center rotation now being Al Horford, Luke Cornett, and Blake Griffin, and maybe Grant Williams in some small ball lineups. It's not great when you're going up against Joel Embiid and a team that I think is kind of undervalued coming into the season in Philadelphia. So I wouldn't want to rush to bet 2.5, but I do, by my numbers at least, see still a little bit of value there. I think it's more of an in-game opportunity from the standpoint of the 76ers. And I think the same could be said for Golden State. I think there's a kind of, I don't call it lazy, but for lack of a better term, a lazy narrative that teams that are getting their rings right on ring night are distracted. They're 8-2 straight up, 6-4 against the spread of the last 10 years when they're getting the ring. So I wouldn't really buy too much into that. And the Lakers come into this injured. Thomas Bryant, figured to be their starting center, is not going to play. Dennis Schroeder's not going to play. Troy Brown Jr. is not going to be available either, one of their pieces that was supposed to be on the bench. So I think when you're looking at what the Lakers are working out in their game, what the Warriors are coming back with, and the continuity that they have, this went from 5.5 up to 7 because of the injuries. Again, I'd wait for an in-game opportunity there. But once that starts to get past the 5.5 mark for Golden State, I think it'd be a pretty good opportunity to go in and lay a number with them tonight.
I love it. And then I'm going to finish up with our really quick segment, rapid fire here. Choose your future. I'm going to give you 2 teams that have similar odds. You just tell me which one you would rather bet on ahead of the NBA season. So let's start off. Milwaukee Bucks plus 550, Warriors plus 700 to win the NBA championship.
Milwaukee Bucks.
Miami Heat 16-1, or the Nuggets, the dark horse team we brought up earlier, at 20-1.
Yeah, Denver Nuggets for sure.
And then Lakers at 27-1, or the Dallas Mavericks at 27.
Ooh, that's tough. Oh man, I'll go with the Mavericks because I think they're gonna have a down year, but I think they're still gonna make it into the top 8. So I'll go Mavericks.
And then I'll throw one MVP one at you. Let's go Jason Tatum 12-1, or Steph Curry 13-1.
Oh, Jason Tatum for sure.
Love it. All right, that's all we got for you. Thank you very much, JVT. Tell the people at home where the best place is to find your work.
At me, JVT, up on Twitter, as you mentioned. Also, if you go up to vsin.com/JVT, I do daily write-ups on the betting markets in the NBA too. You can find those every single morning. That's pretty much it. So go check those out.
Fantastic. One of the best NBA betting follows out there on Twitter. So be sure to follow him at me, JVT. Thank you so much for joining me, my friend. Good luck this NBA season.
Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
Next up, Ben Heisler is going to be joining me talking about best bets for tonight. He's got some NBA picks. I got some picks for the NHL slate tonight. And then we are both going to give out our best bet for game 1 of the NLCS between the San Diego Padres and Philadelphia Phillies. And there he is, Ben Heisler. What's going on? Are you excited for the start of the NBA season?
I am, because as a Chicago sports fan, I need something positive in my life right now. Watching the Cubs and the White Sox fall apart, the Bears season has been over the moment that they kicked the football away. Blackhawks season has been done the moment they put on their skates. So at least the Bulls will be competitive. I don't even know if they're good, Ian, but they'll be competitive. So that just gives me something to hang on to before spring training starts next year.
I see what's going on in our Slack chat here. Are the Guardians coming back against the Yankees here? No, they blew it.
Did they blow it? Last time I saw Jose Ramirez at the bases loaded against, I don't know, they took out Nestor Cortez. I feel like I'm like a couple minutes behind on the stream. So, yeah, that would have been nice. That would have been nice for a nice opportunity to tie that game up and keep both my bets on the Guardians and the ALCS to win the pennant as well as the World Series. I know Joe Summers has those odds as well, 40-1 and 100-1. Don't think it's going to happen today, and it just everything from the moment that the Guardians couldn't go back to their hotel in New York and they had to split up the team. This whole series was rigged against Cleveland from the start.
I'm telling you, Ben, I can't live in the city if the Yankees win the World Series. That's going to be a nightmare.
You chose to move to I get what you're saying as a Blue Jays fan, but then again, you also chose to move to New York, which has the most World Series of any team ever. So that makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, but how many in the last 10 years? One in the last 10 years?
Okay, all right. So if we're going off of the 10-year sample size for the Yankees, then I understand.
And I'm not going to be here long. A few years. I was banking on no Yankees World Series wins in like the 3 years I'm going to live here. But we'll see. Okay. I think the Astros are going to be able to beat them anyways. Let's talk some picks for tonight. As I mentioned earlier, you got some NBA picks, including a futures bet that you should place before the action gets started tonight. I got 3 NHL bets because, yes, the NHL is still going on. Even though people haven't really been paying too close of attention to it after the opening day. But hey, there's some value out there. I like my 3 bets for tonight. And of course, we have some community picks that we have to get through. So why don't we start with that? But I will say, if you haven't voted in the poll already for the game of the night, Phillies Padres, go ahead and vote for that. And we'll see if the community can get hot with their picks this week. But let's get the individual community picks going. Let's bring up the first one. I think we have a little mix of everything here. So this is already ongoing, but Jay Lopez just say Yankees money line is an emotional head. I just wanted to bring this up because I agree. This is one of my favorite things to do is what I call an emo hedge, which is a shortened version of emotional head. But I agree. If they lose, America wins. That's a fact. Nobody except for Yankees fans wants to see the Yankees World Series.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm sure the baseball executives would be happy to be able to get some more television money coming in from the New York market and to have Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton and Garrett Cole on their televisions yet again. But I think the problem was that I missed the window. I should have grabbed the Yankees to win the series when they were down 2-1 to Cleveland. I felt the Guardians were going to put it away. They were not able to do so. And now it just feels like I missed the window, missed the boat. So I have to ride it out with Cleveland at this point.
Yeah, I hate the Yankees so much. All right, let's get to some community picks for games that are actually going on later tonight. Devils -1.5 plus 135 here. This is a game that I'll be betting on as well. They're taking on the Anaheim Ducks, and I won't spoil my pick too much, but I will say something about the New Jersey Devils. They're 0-2, and I know Matt Verderame, a fan side, a big Devils fan. We were talking about that this past Sunday, but some of their underlying statistics are actually kind of promising. At least, I mean, it's only 2 games. It's an unbelievably small sample size, but through the first 2 games, they have been last year's Los Angeles Kings, where all the advanced analytics, they rank basically at the top in the NHL, but they can't put the puck in the net and they can't stop a beach ball in terms of their goaltending. So if they can sharpen those areas up, Devils could be a sneaky team if they can keep up at least their advanced analytics through the first couple of games. So that's what I'll say. I'll dive into that more a little bit later, though.
I feel like, the teams that had such a good goaltender for a long time, they just always seem to go through stretches where they're just searching for the next guy. Like, who's going to be the next Martin Brodeur? Obviously not the next Brodeur, but somebody that you can at least rely on consistently. So yeah, if they're scoring, at least it's going to make it a little bit more interesting. But yeah, find a halfway decent netminder at least at some point, even if it's just a fill-in guy for a year.
Yeah, I'd love for the Leafs to do that as well. The Leafs need a goalie, even more than the Devils do.
Yeah, you can't be losing games to the Arizona Coyotes at home.
-550 favorites, and they lost last night.
Arizona used to be good too a million years ago. Like, they had Jeremy Roenick and Keith Tkachuk, and now they've been awful forever.
Yeah, they're going to be the worst team in the NHL this year by wide margin.
Don't sell short on the Blackhawks. They're pretty atrocious.
The Blackhawks they have some talent. They still got Patty Kane.
It's true.
Let's Max Domi, son of Ty Domi, there now. Let's bring up the next community pick. Sean Blazik at Sweat Bets. Wiggins under 5.5 rebounds. I saw this pick floating around on Twitter by a few people today. Ben, do you have any thoughts on Wiggins under 5.5 rebounds?
I think it makes sense because the Lakers can occasionally play slow, and a lot of times Wiggins will get a lot of those boards in transition. So I don't mind the play. I think they've given him more of an opportunity to score and score quickly. But I also know that you have a lot more Klay Thompson now coming to be available, as opposed to just like a guy off the bench when he was recovering from injury. I'd have to look at some of the numbers from when Thompson came back and was getting consistent minutes, and also in the postseason. But Wiggins was so good defensively in the postseason, and then towards the second half of the year, that you have to imagine that he's going to be on LeBron for a while. Maybe because of that matchup that keeps him away from the rim, and somebody else loads up on rebounds. So maybe that's sort of the advantage, the vantage point here.
I will chime in with someone who actually just chimed in the chat. Best Pie Eater. He says Padres 12-1 to win National League and 28-1 to win World Series. Do I hedge against the Phillies? That was me who sent in the Devils pick. I like that they are playing the Ducks after a back-to-back, and like the Corsi percentage and Fenwick percentage ranks of the Devils. This is basically my burner account here. I will talk about Corsi percentage here when I give out my pick for the Devils here in a moment. But in terms of hedging Padres in National League and World Series, I get a lot of questions. People ask me about hedging situations. Hedging is very much a personal preference type of thing to do. So it's hard for me to kind of give you an exact right answer, because there is no real correct answer. It's all about how you feel about risk, how much you actually bet on them to win the World Series or the National Series. I mean, if it's life-changing money, or if it's money that if you lose, it's going to hurt you, then yeah, you might want to take a look at hedging. Either bet Phillies to win the series. You could go game by game, just kind of bet on the Phillies each game and kind of see how that works out for you. But I don't necessarily have a right answer. What I will say is I have a bet on the Phillies to win the National League. I will not be hedging. I am just going to ride that one out because it is just a small bet for me. It's not life-changing money. I could hedge and guarantee a small profit at this point, but hey, I'm doing this for fun. I'm going to ride it out and just hope for the best. So that's my advice. It really is just personal opinion.
Yeah, I think if you're the 28-1 on the World Series for the Phillies, maybe that's an opportunity to try and find some aspect to hedge while you can still get some decent prices on the other side. But I think now that you're at this point, unless you know definitively what your odds are going to be for who they might play, that makes it awfully tough. Like, again, it's too even at this point. Like, if you hedge now, I feel like, especially if they get off to an early lead, you feel like you just kind of toss some money away to the side and you didn't need it. So I don't think now's the time, especially if it's just a smaller bet.
Yeah, the thing to do might be to actually wait to see if the Padres go up a game or even two, and then you can get the Phillies at like 3-1, 4-1, 5-1 to come back and win the series, and that might be a good time to hedge. So right now, I would say ride it out and kind of see what happens and evaluate your options after game one. But at the end of the day, it is 100% your call. Like I said, completely a personal preference thing. As unhelpful as that answer probably is. All right, let's go to the next community pick here. LeBron over 5.5 assists. This comes in from Victor Steyer. LeBron over 5.5 assists and a lock emoji next to it. It is a lock.
Wow.
How do you feel about that one?
I like it. I know that LeBron initially, especially in these types of games, likes to facilitate early. Obviously the problem is that Golden State is just so good defensively. Finished with the second best defensive rating in the league. A season ago behind only Boston. So I don't mind the play, because normally the Warriors struggle a bit in the first half, and then I'll talk about this a little bit later. Like, their propensity in the second half to really turn things around might make things more difficult for LeBron. But I just think they're going to put so much attention to him to try and take away his ability to score, that they'll force him to find other guys on the team. And outside of Anthony Davis and maybe to a certain extent Russell Westbrook, there's not a whole lot to feel great about in Los Angeles right now. So I think he'll try it and eventually take over the game. Normally, primetime games for LeBron, that's usually a good opportunity to fade a lot of his scoring numbers, even though you expect the onus to be on him. But I do think it's an opportunity for LeBron, especially in the early portion, to move the ball around early. So I think 5.5 is a reasonable number to get to tonight.
LeBron averaged 6.2 assists per game last season, and Basketball References' his projected numbers is 6.8 assists this season. So I like it.
I do too, but again, it's a good Warriors defense,
right.
And just like JVT mentioned in the earlier portion of the show, Ian, like the concept that they're going to be distracted on championship banner night is utterly ridiculous. It's just simply not true over a fairly decent sample size.
All right, let's get to the final community pick for tonight, which I believe is a hockey pick. Canucks money line. Canucks were supposed to be one of the better teams. Well, not one of the better teams, but they're supposed to take a significant step forward in the NHL this year, and they've gotten off to a disappointing 0-3 start. I was on them one game. They're up 2-0 against the Flyers, and then blew it, lost 3-2. And I think last night or the night before their last game, I think they blew a lead as well against the Capitals. Yeah, they were up. They're up 4-2 heading into the third period and lost 6-4. So Canucks have now blown 2 straight leads. They are 0-3 on the season, but tonight they get to take on another 0-3 team, the Columbus Blue Jackets, a team that the Canucks should certainly be better than. I looked at betting on the Canucks tonight, actually. I'm just bringing up their odds here if I can find them. Minus 118. So I like that bet. I mean, the Canucks are a more talented team. They're a more skilled team. I've already had some Canucks fans in my mentions going after Bruce Boudreau. We'll see if he kind of sticks around, but 0-4 is going to be a disgusting start. They should certainly beat Columbus tonight. I stayed away just because I was nervous after they broke my heart against the Flyers a couple days ago. So
didn't Columbus make a bunch of trades this offseason to get themselves in much better shape, or did they go ahead and do a full-on rebuild? Columbus made a big signing. Why am I blanking on who they signed in the offseason? Did they get the guy? They didn't get the guy from Chicago, or did they?
They got Johnny Gaudreau from the.
That's right. Yeah, Gaudreau came over from Calgary, but they also had. Don't they also have Panarin, or am I confusing?
Panarin's on the Rangers. He used to be on the Blue
Rangers.
Jackets. He's on the Rangers now.
There's somebody from Chicago that went over to Columbus at some point, and I'm totally blanking out on who it is. I know this is fantastic YouTube content, but
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I'm looking at the list right now. I don't know. Panarin was there at one point in time, though. All right, let's. So those are our picks. Those are the community picks. Let's get to our picks. As I mentioned, I have 3 NHL. Ben, you have 3 NBA. Why don't we just alternate back and forth here? You start us off with your first NBA pick for tonight's action.
Yeah, so something that I mentioned just very briefly in the course of our conversation talking about LeBron, but the Golden State Warriors, Ian, are a team that you just don't want to mess with in the third quarter. And right now, the third quarter odds for the Warriors are very, very juicy. Depending on where you look, you can get it at minus 1.5 for the third quarter at minus 117. That's where I got it at. You can also find them Warriors minus 2.5 for the third quarter at even odds over at FanDuel. The third quarter last year for Golden State, that was like their happy zone, their happy place. They finished with a plus 16.7 net rating. The Los Angeles Lakers on the road were minus 10.6. Everything about that period just clicked for Golden State. They finished with the best third quarter defensive rating in the NBA, best net rating in the NBA, best effective field goal percentage, while also finishing top 5 in offensive rating as well. I've seen some fairly sharp people that I follow on the social media platforms take an alternative line to as high as minus 10.5 to get a nice big bounce back. I don't know if I'm ready to go ahead and do that this early in the season, but I just know that this is an area for Golden State that they thrive. Something about halftime adjustments, they wake up, they start hitting more shots, they play outstanding defense. And I like the fact you can get them at a fairly small number, still get even odds on it. So go ahead and give me the Warriors minus 2.5 in the third quarter at even money tonight in the nightcap of game 2 of the doubleheader on TNT.
I have nothing to add to that, but I'm going to add something that's completely off topic. We're not talking about football this entire show. I'm going to sneak in a little football stat here because it is a quarter stat. You're just talking third quarter. Philadelphia Eagles are scoring 18.7 points in the second quarter this season.
Yeah, they've been great. We also saw the Indianapolis Colts for the first time all season give up points in the fourth quarter this year. And they're going up this week against the Titans team that is the worst fourth quarter offense in the NFL. So these trends in these particular quarters, like I was betting quarters all the time, first quarters in the WNBA playoffs, because the information is available, and more often than not, the odds are not adjusted specific to the quarter. So there's always plenty of opportunities there that you can take advantage of.
There you go. So for tonight, Warriors third quarter minus 2.5 against the Lakers. This weekend, you got to bet Philadelphia Eagles second quarter. Are they on a bye or are they playing this week? No, I think they're on the bye.
Yeah, Eagles are off this week on the bye.
So you'll have to do that next week, but this week you can bet Colts fourth quarter against the Titans. Some quarter stats for you. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity for you, Ian, to back your guy Matty Ice in a comeback. Like, what could go wrong?
Hey, best quarterback in the NFL last week. Some are saying MVP season's still alive. All right, I'm going to get to my NHL picks here. My first one, square one, but I think it's a right one here. I'm going to go Lightning puck line minus 110 here against the Flyers. Flyers surprisingly got off to a 2-0 start this season, but I think that's going to come crashing down tonight. Really, the only reason for their 2-0 record is their goaltender. Carter Hart has a .940 save percentage so far this season. He is playing again tonight, but he's going up against Andrei Vasilevsky. So the goalies kind of wash each other out. The Flyers' underlying statistics certainly do not look good. 31st in 5-on-5 Corsi percentage, at 37.35%. And they haven't exactly played an elite team yet. This will be the first team that they play this season that's an elite team in the Lightning. If they're on the road, I think Lightning take care of business in a big way tonight. I'll take Tampa Bay minus 1.5, minus 110.
Yeah, those puck line odds are always intriguing, especially when you can get it only minus 110, especially if it's close. You know, Tampa's going to be able to have plenty of scoring chances. Yeah, I don't mind the play one bit.
All right, let's hear your second pick for tonight, which I believe, is it a player prop?
It is a player prop. It's in the first game of the doubleheader on NBA tonight. I typically hate taking overs when it comes to James Harden because more often than not, he's let me down. But this feels like an ideal spot where you can go ahead and get a really good number on him. It opened up at 7.5, grabbed it there, but it's now up to 8.5. And I still think that's a reasonable play. Over 7.5 or 8.5 assists for James Harden tonight. In the 21 games that he's played with Joel Embiid in Philadelphia, he's averaged 21 points, 10.5 assists, and 7.5 rebounds. Boston is obviously going to be a solid pressuring defensive team. But what the Sixers need out of Harden is the ability to distribute, and especially tonight without Robert Williams, you're going to want to get the ball into Joel Embiid as much as humanly possible. And then, if it forces some more double teams, he can kick it back out to Harden, who can then pass it around the perimeter, because the Sixers should be a better three-point shooting team this year than they were from a season ago. Also saw this note from the Action Network that Harden cleared 8.5 assists in 15 of his 21 games in Philadelphia alongside of Joel Embiid. So figure it's an opportunity here, especially knowing that the number moved in the right direction and you can still get some decent value on it. So yeah, give me the over 7.5 if it's still available, or more often than not, 8.5 on James Harden for assists tonight.
There you have it, a player prop for the first of the 2 NBA games tonight. My next hockey pick, I jumped on this morning because I thought the line was going to move the opposite way. Moved against me, and I don't understand why. I'm on the Bruins plus 105 against the Senators. It's moved up to plus 110. I mean, I know the Senators are an up-and-coming team, but making them favorites against the Bruins, I think, is just insane. Boston 3-0 to start the season, and their analytics have been fantastic. 5th in 5-on-5 Corsi percentage. They're averaging the second most high-danger scoring chances per 60 minutes and are allowing the 4th fewest high-danger scoring chances. The thing that kept the Bruins back from a lot of success, especially in the postseason last year, was their offense. Now their offensive numbers, at least early in the season, have looked to bounce back in a big way this year. So I think the Bruins might even win the Atlantic Division. I was kind of high on them coming into the year. In their first 3 games, they've exceeded those expectations. I love them as underdogs against the Senators tonight. So I'll take Bruins plus 105. And for NBA, Ben, you're going to wrap up with a futures bet.
Yes. Quick mention on the futures. By the way, for whatever reason, I got the Columbus Blue Jackets and Ottawa Senators confused. It was the Blackhawks that traded Alex DeBrincat to Ottawa, and then they got Seth Jones the year before from Columbus. So that was the confusion there. So apologize to all of the Hockey Nation watching that I probably severely offended in the process. My season-long best bets for this year, and you can find our entire team's best bets for the season along with our MVP picks and most valuable and most improved players. All the different props available for the season are over at FanSided. But I'm taking the under on the Phoenix Suns at under 52.5 wins. There's something about this team that just smells a little bit funny. They're also dealing with some guys coming back from injury. Chris Paul is 1,000 years old. Devin Booker was dealing with some injuries over the course of the playoffs last year. Yeah, they brought back DeAndre Ayton, but this was a team that just was really soft in the postseason. And for as dominant as they were throughout the regular season and also at home, they folded, just completely fell apart. And for me to anticipate that in an improved and more Western Conference that's got more depth, especially with what the Denver Nuggets I think are going to be able to do this year, I expect the Dallas Mavericks to be an improved team. You have New Orleans now coming on with a healthy Zion Williamson. There's just less room for error with Phoenix. And I'm not expecting them to just completely fall apart. There's still too much talent on this team. But we're talking about a win total projection that's among the top 3 in the Western Conference. And you're just going to have a far better group of teams competing against them this year. Like, they're not a fluke anymore after that first season. This is still a quality team, but there's still so many moving parts, Ian, and guys dealing with injuries, and you still got the fallout from the Robert Sarver situation. It just doesn't set up well as a team that I think is going to be a dominant regular season team. Now, they could get hot at the right time and make a push in the postseason because the talent is there. But I just think there's going to be too many guys missing games throughout the course of the season that I don't feel comfortable taking the over here.
So there you have it. Suns under 52.5. Bet it now before the season starts in about 2 hours. And I got one more NHL pick for tonight's action here. I'm going with the favorite, and this is the game that I talked about a little bit earlier, the New Jersey Devils minus 190 against the Anaheim Ducks. I know the person who sent it in the Best Pie Eater in the chat sent it in through Twitter earlier, mentioned about the Devils' Corsi and Fenwick numbers, and that's what I like too. Like I said earlier, their advanced analytics, very good. They're actually first in the NHL. That's right, first in the NHL in 5-on-5 Corsi percentage at 67.03%. They're averaging 18.28 high danger scoring chances, and they're allowing the fewest high danger scoring chances at 6.77. Like, this is a dream start for a team when it comes down to advanced analytics. Now, their issue, as I mentioned earlier, shooting and save percentage, 29th in shooting percentage, 32nd in save percentage. So their shooting has not been great. Their goaltending has not been great. But now that they're taking on a bad team in the Anaheim Ducks, hopefully they can rebound in those two percentage statistics, and they can keep up their advanced analytics. But yeah, if they can find a goalie and if they can find some shooting, if they can keep up these numbers, this Devils team might be a little bit of a sneaky play this year. So I'm going to go with the Devils here. Mackenzie Blackwood is starting in net for the Devils. He allowed 4 goals and 20 shots in the opening night. That's not good. So need a bounce back night from Mackenzie Blackwood, but I like the Devils here. I think they beat up on the Ducks. I'm willing to lay the juice at -190 instead of taking puck line. I feel a little bit more safe with that. So there we go. Those are our best bets. Let's go ahead and bring up the recap graphic just in case you missed some of them. For NHL tonight, I'm taking Lightning -1.5, -110 against the Flyers, Bruins +105 against the Senators, and Devils -190 against the Ducks. Ben, you're on the Warriors, the third quarter spread -2.5 at even money. You're on over 7.5 assists for James Harden, and a NBA futures bet, your best bet for NBA futures, under 52.5 wins for the Phoenix Suns. And as you mentioned, head over to BetSided to see everyone else's, except for mine, best NBA bet for this year.
We should have kept track of it, Ian. Like kind of how it was for Rookie and the Vet for you and Donovan in NHL picks. You should have just made the picks, and we could have seen how you did relative to all of us. And more likely than not, you probably would have cashed, and we wouldn't.
I will make my best NBA preseason bet right now: the Milwaukee Bucks to make the playoffs.
Okay, so that's what, like $1,000 bet, and you might get $10 back.
Yep, right. Pretty much.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
Let's see here. To make the playoffs, the Milwaukee Bucks. A $1,000 bet will win me $33, Ben. So there's my lock of the century.
What team is Luka Garza on now? Like this is our
Minnesota. He's on the Minnesota Timberwolves, so they will be my favorite team this year.
Okay. All right. So, Timberwolves, that's a little bit more interesting. They're a projected playoff team. They get Rudy Gobert. And maybe you throw a couple bucks on the Timberwolves to make the Western Conference Finals this year, or maybe to lead the NBA in wins. That you could actually get a nice little return from.
I'm looking right now. I'm looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves depth chart. Luka Garza, the 5th string center. So how about that? Hey, we just need about 4 injuries, and Luka Garza is getting in the lineup.
It's really like the worst possible place that he could have gone to. Like I'm glad he's still hanging around for you on an NBA roster, but when you have Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, bro, you're not going to play.
Yeah, it's not good. That's all right. Hey, I still got faith in my boy. But let's move on to the game of the night here. Let's wrap this show up. It is game 1 of the NLCS. It is the Philadelphia Phillies. Who would have thought it'd be the Phillies against the Padres in the NLCS? Braves and Dodgers both upset in the divisional series. Big game 1 tonight. It is Zach Wheeler going up against Yu Darvish. Ben, what is your best bet for game 1 of the NLCS?
Let's go ahead and just get the best bet out of the way with a Nerfy tonight. I like it at -160. Zach Wheeler's been dominant in the first inning all season long. He's 24-3, 12-2 on the road. Yu Darvish has had his issues in the first inning. As someone who watched him fairly religiously during his time in Chicago, that always seemed to be the inning that gave him the most amount of trouble. He would have issues with his fastball command. And then the breaking pitches, even though there was all sorts of movement, teams would just spit on him because you couldn't locate his fastball. Had some issues in the first inning this year, but was much better at home. 12-2 at Petco Park in no-run first innings this year compared to 11-6 on the road. Really good weather for pitchers tonight at Petco Park. The wind is blowing in from left to right at about 9 miles per hour. So, if Darvish gives up a ball in the air, more often than not, like it has the opportunity to get blown in a little bit. So if it's weak contact, it's not necessarily going to travel, even with really good weather traditionally in San Diego. So I like the fact that you can go ahead and bet on 2 quality starting pitchers whose numbers back up where they're playing tonight. Darvish in San Diego, Wheeler on the road. Everything seems to be all Millhouse tonight for no-run first inning.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. I'm gonna go with the side here. I'm gonna go with the Phillies. I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, not the top of the show, a few minutes ago though, that my preseason pick for the World Series was the Astros to defeat the Philadelphia Phillies. So I placed a bet on the Phillies to win the National League. I'm feeling pretty good about it right now. I've ridden them this entire way. Why stop now? Especially as underdogs against the Padres. I was a little bit surprised here that they were underdogs in the spot. Zach Wheeler pitched 7 scoreless innings against the Padres in his only start against them earlier this season. 9 strikeouts to only 4 hits. Also, as a whole, no matter what time frame you look at, this Phillies offense has been better than the Padres. If you look back at September 1st, they're 7th in OPS compared to the Padres at 16th. If you look at how they face, how they both do against right-handed pitchers, because both starters are righties tonight, Phillies 8th in OPS, Padres 17th. Also, Ben, you did mention Yu Darvish. For your sake, I hope he does do well in the first inning, but I don't have a lot of faith in him for this entire start here. He's been shaky in the postseason throughout his career. 4.6 ERA in his career in the postseason. Zach Wheeler, this is his first time in the postseason, but he's been solid through his first 2 starts, 2.19 postseason ERA. So I've been backing the Phillies the whole way. Why stop now? Phillies even money against the Padres.
Yeah, don't mind the play, especially you're backing Wheeler. I mean, the top of the Phillies rotation right now with Wheeler and Aaron Nola is as dangerous as any 1-2 combination remaining in the postseason. So you back those starters, you get off to a good lead, and you hope that the softball team lineup is able to generate enough runs, because if there is a decisive advantage for San Diego, it's in the back end of the bullpen with Josh Hader now looking like the Josh Hader that they thought they were getting at the deadline. And also defensively, like they can just cover a ton of ground. They don't make a ton of mistakes in the field. And Philly just can't really say that, especially with a fairly lumbering outfield. So Philly's got to score a bunch of runs in San Diego if they're going to want to make sure that they come back and bring the series back to Philadelphia. But I certainly don't mind them in the early portion with them going with their best starters tonight.
Complete side note, even though the show has gone on a little too long already, dunkingwithwolves.com, which is the fan-sided Minnesota Timberwolves affiliate. This is written by Will Udy. The title is 3 Timberwolves Who Shattered Expectations in the Preseason. Number 1, Luka Garza. So how about that?
Maybe they're setting him up for a possible trade deal to go to a team where he can get some playing time. Send him to like Utah or something.
His versatile game proved too much for Minnesota to ignore, drilling 3 shots from beyond the arc against the Lakers. He goes on to write, Garza may have taken his first step in what becomes a long NBA career. Hey, I didn't write this article.
You sure? You sure Dunking with Wolves is not the burner account that you've been going on for such a long time?
It's not. It is the official fan-sided affiliate with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Here at BetSided.
I am now a Timberwolves fan. I need a Luka Garza Timberwolves jersey. But let's wrap up the show. There were our best bets for Game 1 of the NLCS. The poll results, the BetSided community, the YouTube poll was a tie between the Phillies and Padres. The Twitter poll results takes it over the edge. The community is with me. Phillies even money. I don't know how I feel about that. The poll, I feel like, has been kind of cold lately. Hot streak starts today with the poll. I don't know if they won yesterday or not because I wasn't on the show. I think it was Reed and Peter yesterday. So I don't know. Maybe they won last night. Maybe we're in the middle of a hot streak.
Because I think the game of the night was
Yankees, and then they got canceled.
Yankees and Guardians.
There you go. So fresh slate this week, BetSided community. Let's do it. Me and you, Phillies even money tonight. That is our show. Ben, any closing thoughts?
Go Guardians. Let's mount a comeback. Let's make things a little bit more interesting. May all of your best bets hit for the NBA. May your Luka Garza bet that you'll probably end up placing at some point, Ian, hit for you as well. But please do check out all of our best bets over at BetSided today. A lot of work, a lot of time went into those. And then also, I know you'll mention Daily Reed this week. Another fun guest, another good opportunity. Reed's been really crushing it with his college football picks as well.
Yep, Early Reed was live earlier today, so check that out. Reed was joined by Walt Waddell, and the two of them broke down their best picks for college football week 8, and I will be back on Daily BetSlip tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, with Donovan Smoot. I'm sure we'll talk some NBA, some NHL, maybe some MLB. We'll talk everything, a little bit of everything. But that is today's episode of Daily BetSlip, the Water Heater Factory. What a fantastic username chimes in the last second, says, "Go Padres." The Water Heater Factory going on the opposite side of the BetSided community. Best of luck. One of us will win, my friend. But that is today's show. Good luck with all your bets. Gamble or bless. I'll see you tomorrow.